Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm Yana. Welcome back. This is panel 3 on social cohesion for the future. This panel will discuss the importance of the role of community leadership in strengthening social cohesion by fostering well-being, a sense of belonging, and voluntary social participation among members of society. It will also focus on developing communities that appreciate and promote a multiplicity of values and cultures. As per previous session, please, we require your kind assistance to put all your mobile devices on silent mode. Please do hashtag ICOS2024 if you do post pictures and videos on your social media. Throughout the session, you can see the QR code where we will post a question on Pigeonhole Live, and these will be addressed during the Q&A session. Last but not least, the Chatham House rules apply. Panel attendees are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers nor that of any participant may be revealed. I am rushing through. So, Dr. Mathews is our chair panel today. He's the head of IPS Social Lab and Principal Research Fellow at the Institute of Policy Studies, National University of Singapore. He has led over 70 projects focused on social policy with a strong emphasis on social cohesion, race, religion, and immigrant integration. Dr. Mathews also leads the IPS program on race, religion, intergroup cohesion, and serves on the board of onepeople.sg, a national organization promoting racial and religious harmony. Now, I invite Dr. Matthew Mathews and the panel speakers. Everyone, please, on stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And first, congratulations for Muis at this very important conference, and very happy to be able to be a part of this, and very happy to be able to moderate this particular panel. This panel will discuss an important topic, which is really how community leadership can strengthen social cohesion. You'll be hearing from our 3 esteemed panel members, Mayor Pongsak from Yala in Thailand, Superintendent Rakesh, Naidoo from the New Zealand Police Force, and Ustazah Liyana Asmara from Singapore's Harmony Centre. But before they share from their important experience and their vantage points, allow me just to provide a few quick, broad, overarching ideas, which I guess will guide some of our understanding about this topic. I think we want to just quickly know what some of these big terms are. Number one, what social cohesion is, and why are we really concerned about it? And why do we feel that it should be strengthened? The academic literature that examines social cohesion says that it's a very multifaceted concept. It basically looks at the quality of social relations and the interactions that happens among members of society who are embedded in power relations. So that's an important idea, because people are not all equal when they come. Now, they're supposed to be equal constitutionally in a democratic kind of society. But the truth of the matter is that people come with different power differentials. That could be the case when you interact with people who might come from a different ethnic or religious, cultural background. Some people bring with them certain kinds of privileges, and others may have gone through various kinds of marginalization or can be vulnerable. So these interactions are guided by various kinds of attitudes and norms that include trust. So when we say there is social cohesion within a group or a country, then we expect a sense of belonging among different groups, whether you are a member of the majority of that society or the minority. And all groups are able to participate and help people across community lines. So that really is the idea about social cohesion. Secondly, I guess the question would be why we are concerned about this. We recognize, especially coming out from the post-COVID season, we do realize that if communities are not cohesive, then it's very difficult to deal with any kind of crisis. And we saw that in COVID-19. It was so important that communities, regardless of their status within society, find ways to be able to build and work together if they're going to overcome this very big crisis. But the truth of the matter is that kind of cohesion is not always found, and in many places that cohesion is being challenged every day because we find it difficult in an age where people come from different backgrounds. How do we find a way to be able to work with people who come from different ethnic, religious, social backgrounds? My final thought before we hear the panel is a question about how we build social cohesion. In a G20 report, Social Cohesion, Global Governance, and the Future of Politics, there were a few important recommendations which they put out, and I want to just highlight them. Number one, if you're going to see social cohesion, there must be opportunities for increased citizen-to-citizen contact, including across ethnic and social divides, through joining groups, helping, and volunteering. These activities have the potential to facilitate integration of newcomers and build reciprocal tolerance. And number two, if social cohesion is going to happen, then we must find ways to strengthen employment options and skills to enable every group, whether it's majority or minority, to have full participation in society. That also means that we have to work very hard to ensure social inclusion of all in the economy, and that means fighting against discriminatory practices which may hinder some groups, especially minorities, from being able to have a fair shake at the economy. And of course, the third point, if you want to have social cohesion, then it's very important to have good governance, good media regulation, and good public government relationships. Because if you don't build trust between these different groups, social cohesion becomes very difficult. In many crisis points, you do need an arbiter, and a good state, which is well trusted, becomes a very useful neutral party, an empire to be able to help curb the many different concerns and build a place where you have a reduction of flashpoints. The bulk of the rest of the discussion, I think, will be hearing from the panel, and I do think that there will be very important ideas that we can hear. I will first hear from Mayor Pongsak, and given his role in regional government, we'll be able to find about how inclusivity and collaboration is possible and how it helps much for effective governance. Mayor, would you come and share with us?
Very good afternoon, Excellency, Mr. Sunkify, Minister for Social and Family Development, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow panelists. I am honored to be part of this esteemed panel today as the Mayor of Yala City for the past 20 years. I have experienced the challenges and opportunities that our community faces today. I will share my insight on fostering social cohesion in Yala City through my leadership experience. Yala City, located in the southernmost province of Thailand, is bordered to Malaysia. Our city is home to Buddhist, Muslim, and Chinese. It is contributing their unique perspective and tradition to our rich cultural heritage. Despite our differences, we have historically coexisted peacefully, fostering a sense of harmony and understanding. You can see the photo. Yala is in the southernmost province. There we have been the administration since 2004, but now situation become better, and now it's already peaceful. So I can invite you, all of you, to visit my hometown. To build a strong community, the municipality has implemented various initiatives designed to promote participation, foster social connections, and encourage engagement in community activities. These efforts aim to strengthen the bonds between residents and create a more inclusive and vibrant community. We have done a lot of participation process. The first, we have the monthly meeting. Given Yala is a multicultural society, so as a leader in Yala, I believe it is really important we listen to everyone. That is why the city is hosting monthly meeting with community leaders. This meeting is not just about talking or discussing, but also and opportunities to encourage open dialogue and foster respect for diverse perspectives. Doesn't move. The management team will do a community visitation once a year in order to listen their concerns, ideas, and suggestions from general citizens live in community. This is to be more focused on spatial problems. The municipality has 43 registered committees according to the regulation of the Ministry of Interior. However, there are also committees beyond the registered one. Therefore, the municipality organized a coffee forum in the central recreation one area of the city, which served as a place for relaxation and exercise. The municipality provides breakfast for the public to encourage participation and share their opinions. The coffee forum is held on the third Saturday morning of every month. The municipality also holds an annual forum inviting people from all profession, group, and age, including student representative, religion leader, and any interested citizen to participate. Each year, around 3,000 participants attend. Everyone has the right to express their opinion within the allocated time frame, with participation rotating throughout the meeting hall. At the same time, a survey is conducted during the forum to evaluate satisfaction with municipality management and to gather additional needs from the citizens beyond what they expect in the meeting. On many occasions, the proposals from this forum are pushed forward to become city agendas. We also hold other monthly meetings such as Council for the Young People, Women, the Elderly, and various occupation groups. Public participation has evolved over time, particularly in the digital age. The municipality had introduced Line OA as a channel for citizens to express their opinion or submit campaigns. Additionally, there are Facebook, mobile apps, chatbots, and dashboards available to share information with the public. For example, for the Line OA, we also have the Yala market, something similar to the Gap, so the people vendor can join and no any commission fee. We have the Facebook. Actually, my citizen is only 60,000, but the follower is 140,000. Follow my Yala City Facebook. And also we integrate on the Line OA and Facebook come together. That means 24 hours they can connect with the people through your chatbot. And also we have the Yala mobile app. This one is the formal one, so the people have to use the ID card to register. We have done the referendum or even and like for the free Wi-Fi sport activity or activity. That's a formal one, official one, and use the mobile app. So you can see we separate for the Line OA because Line OA you don't have to put your real name. So you can campaign and blame the mayor every time. And this one is an open dashboard. It's an open data. We separate for the mayor to look after what our municipality activity and also for the citizen open dashboard. The people can follow what our city have done. For the socialization process, the municipality had developed a local curriculum for schools under its jurisdiction from grade 1 to grade 6. The curriculum is divided into modules designed to foster a love for one hometown and to help students understand the value of living in a diverse community. Our municipality has a life learning center called TK Park. It's the biggest in Thailand. It's a livable library. Every Saturday there is a storytelling for kids written and illustrated by local authors and artists. These stories are presented in three languages, Thai, Bahasa, and English. You can see the first one we call the neighborhood you love is to socialize the young kids, how to live together in the same province, in the same city. We have Thailand's first orchestra founded by a local authority, which has been established for 17 years. It provides space for children to engage in activities, learn together, and use music to foster a love for their hometown and build the shared value. This orchestra is belonging to my municipality. It's the first in Thailand. And also we have done a lot of activity about the cross-cultural learning. The first activity we call the Dhamma for Community. This is an activity that brings the Thai Buddhist and Muslim family together to learn about each other, different religion and culture, whether by visiting a mosque or temple, by learning through hand-on experience. This activity helps foster understanding and respect for the difference between the people. We also have the Yala Youth Unity Camp, the Beloved Motherland Camp, bring together youth from underprivileged families selected by their committee. These young participants are divided into 6 groups. Each focused on the different functions of Yala City Municipality. Each group includes youth from various communities, ensuring a mix of background. Over 45 days, they work side by side, contributing to the public service while gaining hand-on experience in how the municipality operates. At the end of the camp, they not only receive tuition support, but also come away with a deeper understanding of the municipality role. Most importantly, they form meaningful friendship with fellow youth from different communities, creating a connection that can last a lifetime. You can see they can go to every department in the municipality to learn about the municipality function. And after that, and when the camp finishes, they have to send to assignment. If you become the next mayor, what would you do for your beloved city? And the second assignment, if you be the Yala youth, how to bring the pig food come to your city, to send to the mayor. So every youth have to send to me. And they got the reward also. And during the summer vacation, the youth can participate in various sport activities, allowing children from different communities to get to know each other. We have a nice sport during the vacation in summer, so the youth can select what sport they love to learn. And that means all the children in the city come to learn together. We have strengthened the community. We empower and decentralization. In the picture, you can see people coming out in large number to vote for their committee president and committee members. This is because the president and committee have a big impact on the quality of life in the community. The municipality has given them the authority to take charge of the community development, which is why their role is so important. As a result, many people are eager to come out and make their voice heard through the voting. Last year, we have an election for the president, the committee president, so a lot of people coming out to vote for the president and committee. Similar to vote for the representative in the House Parliaments. And the municipality provide a subsidy around approximately 2,000 Singapore dollar to support on the activity aimed at strengthening the community. So that means the community can self-management for this subsidization from our municipality. But just only to strengthen, cannot buy like the material or something. So you can do some activity what you want to do. And also allow the community to take charge also managing the municipality valid field. For example, like this playing field is managed by the community, not the mayor. When the people come to ask for you the playing field, I have to add the request. You have to send your request to the committee leader, so they can manage by themselves. Giving the community space to hold fundraising activity for their extra expense. What really impressive is that this committee even donate a portion of the money they raise back to the municipality to help fund other events. It's very funny. Actually, the government have to give the money to the community, but after the community, they do the Ramadan market, they get the profit. They donate to my municipality. And not only that to my municipality, like the Ramadan market, the community, they donate to all the temple belonging to the Buddhists as well. And during the COVID outbreak, on the volunteer for screening and setting up checkpoint came from the community volunteer. During the COVID, in Yala, we have the outbreak COVID. So the checking point, we took the 3-month checking point, but we don't have any workforce enough. So all the community coming out and to do the checking point. Even for the Yala Marathon held during the food season, the ride sharing section were completely organized by the local communities, bringing so much energy to the event. They start getting ready at midnight before the race, preparing everything and staying until the race wrap up around noon. That means 24 hours, don't sleep. The real success of the event is not because of the municipality, but the amazing effort to the community who volunteer their time and energy without any kind of compensation. Everyone came together with no distinction between Buddhists and Muslim to make it success. You can see the share. Thank you for your and thank you for your time and attention. Last but not least, may I open the video clip of the Yala University. It's one of the awards we get from the central government about the creative economy. Thank you much.
ที่แห่งนี้มีความสมบูรณ์มีป่าเขามีอุณหภูมิที่อุ่นใจเป็นเมืองนกแสนสุขสวยงามมากมายสร้างความสัมพันธ์ข้างในจิตใจที่แห่งนี้นั้นมีคุณค่าทำให้เรามีงานมีรักที่สุขใจจากจุดเล็กๆที่มันเติบโตด้วยความเข้าใจช่วยสร้างรอยยิ้มให้มีพลังบินไปสู่ฟ้า Yala University จากวันนั้นจนวันนี้ธรรมชาติที่มีช่างงดงามสิ่งเหล่านี้สร้างมาด้วยภูมิปัญญาของพวกเราชาวยะลาเก็บรักษาหมู่มวลโนเศรษฐกิจสร้างสรรค์ด้วยมือเราเกิดดินแดนแห่งนี้ยะลาเบอร์ซิตี้คือความภาคภูมิใจจากเราทุกคนที่แห่งนี้มีความสมบูรณ์มีป่าเขามีอุณหภูมิที่อุ่นใจเป็นเมืองนกแสนสุขสวยงามม ช่วยสร้างรอยยิ้มให้มีพลังบินไปสู่ฟ้า Yala Versity ที่แห่งนี้มีความสมบูรณ์ มีป่าเขามีอุณหภูมิที่อุ่นใจ เป็นเมืองนกแสนสุขสวยงามมากมาย สร้างความสัมพันธ์ขึ้นในจิตใจ ที่แห่งนี้นั้นมีคุณค่า ทำให้เรามีงานมีรักที่สุขใจ จากจุดเล็กๆที่มันเติบโตด้วยความเข้าใจ ช่วยสร้างรอยยิ้มให้มีพลังบินไปบ้านของฉันนั้นช่างน่าอยู่ มีหมู่นกที่แสนสุขอยู่รอบกาย มีความรักและกำลังใจของคนมากมาย โชคดีที่ได้มาอยู่เมืองนี้ บ้านของฉันคือเมืองยาลา จะนำพาให้เรามีรักตลอดไป และในวันนี้เรามีพลังของความยิ่งใหญ่ จะทำให้เราได้รู้ว่านี่คือบ้านของฉัน Yala Versity
Thank you very much, Mayor Pongsak,
มีความสมบูรณ์
for sharing about the role of inclusivity and collaboration and effective governance. Thank you for sharing all about the platforms that you have in Yala and what you and your municipality has been able to do to be able to find ways for people to collaborate on various kinds of platforms. Really enjoyed hearing about the cross-cultural exchanges which were possible in how you allow them, community leadership, to be able to get or to be able to participate in governance. I think it's good time now to listen to Superintendent Rakesh, Sharanund Naidoo. He's going to be talking about fostering resilience and social cohesion and lessons from the Christ Church.
Your Excellency, I think I'm going to be moving to Yala Versity. Excellent. Assalamu alaikum. I greet you in the indigenous language of New Zealand. He honore, he kororia ki te atua, he manarongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Honor and glory to our Creator, peace on earth, and goodwill to everyone. E whare etu nei tēnā koe to this house, I acknowledge. E nā mana whenua o tēnei rohe, kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi. To the people of this land, to the people of Singapore, I greet you. E nā mana, e nā reo, e nā rau rangatira mā, tēnā ra koutou katoa. To all the distinguished guests, the dignitaries, my fellow and respected panelists, as well as to His Excellency Minister Masagos Zulkifli, I greet and acknowledge you. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a case study on lessons from the 2019 Christchurch terrorist attacks. Surely we belong to our Creator, and to Him we shall return. I begin by acknowledging the families of the 51 Shuhada and the survivors and witnesses of the 15th of March 2019 terrorist attacks, whose lives are forever changed. The coronial inquest into the attacks is currently taking place this week in New Zealand. So my presentation is respectful of that process and what I'm going to share with you in the context of this conference. I'm also respectful that 5 years after the terrorist attacks, the grieving process still continues for those that have been lost. We are broken-hearted, but we are not broken. On the 15th of March, New Zealand faced one of its darkest days, the Christchurch mosque shootings shook our nation to its core. 51 lives were lost, countless others were injured, and our sense of security was shattered. Despite the devastation, an extraordinary display of unity, compassion, and resilience emerged. Imam Gamal Fauda's words encapsulate the spirit that emerged. We are broken-hearted, but we are not broken. Today I'll share insights into how New Zealand, particularly our police organization, worked in partnership with our Muslim communities to maintain and strengthen social cohesion during this challenging time. These insights have also assisted us not only during terrorist attacks, but also during natural disasters, including earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, the COVID-19 pandemic, and ongoing impacts of international and local conflicts. In the pictures that I'm showing you in this slide is the Al-Nur Mosque in Deans Ave and the Islamic Center in Linwood. A society grows great when people plant trees whose shade we may never sit in. Community leaders, as we know, play a pivotal role in two dimensions: building strength within their communities and forging trust across different groups. This dual focus is crucial for social cohesion. In New Zealand, as in other places, we've all recognized the importance of cultivating before-time relationships and partnerships with diverse communities. Our country, like many of yours, is also one of the most diverse in the world, with more than over 230 different ethnicities, speaking over 170 different languages. And in our last census, people identified as belonging to over 100 different religions. This investment in cultivating before-time relationships proved invaluable when these terrorist attacks took place. Great things are never achieved in ideal conditions. Let me take you through the first critical 48 hours of our response. Immediately, we took some key actions. Apart from contacting mosques nationwide, advising them to close, we reached out to Islamic leaders across the country, urging them to keep their communities calm and work with local police, and connected key representatives with Muslim leaders in central and local government. Within hours of the attack, we deployed culturally experienced police members to Christchurch. This included our Deputy Commissioner and myself, who were on the ground to provide a vital link between the police and the Muslim community. Perhaps most crucially, we deployed culturally experienced and we mobilized a team of Islamic experts, including burial experts, religious scholars, and the Islamic community leaders to fly to Christchurch. These experts provided indispensable roles. They delivered spiritual guidance, ensured proper cultural protocols were followed, particularly in responding to the shuhada, including ghusl and janazah, guiding in medical procedures and in cleansing of the facilities, including the mosque and Islamic Center, and offering crucial leadership when many of our Muslim leaders were either deceased, injured, or were traumatized. By taking a visible, inclusive leadership role, we established a rapport that became the foundation for all subsequent engagement with families and the wider community. Equally important was our engagement with the local indigenous community, the local iwi, and the interfaith networks. From the onset, they were integral in assisting us in the operation and assisting us with conflict management and guiding us through culturally appropriate processes. In the picture in the top is Sister Rehana Ali, flanked by Dr. Mustafa Farouk, who was the president of the Federation of Islamic Associations of New Zealand. On the right is Dr. Anwar Ghani, who is a representative on our Police Commissioners Advisory Board. And behind Sister Rihanna is our Deputy Commissioner of Police. The messaging from our Muslim leaders in respect of empathy, peace, and calmness was overwhelmingly one of the key reasons why our nation stayed united and did not devolve into anarchy and chaos during a very critical time. Also pictured in the second photo is the head of the Ulama Council of New Zealand, Sheikh Amir, meeting with the local head of the indigenous people for Christchurch on the first day so that they could together manage what had occurred. We build trust in times of peace, and we measure during a crisis. Our response hinged on three key strategies: trusted partners with proven character and contribution, cultural competence, proactive community engagement, and transparent communication. Now, these weren't developed overnight. I acknowledge Ibrar Sheikh, who is in the audience today. Ibrar is the president of the Federation of Islamic Associations of New Zealand and the pinnacle body representing our Muslims in New Zealand. And pictured is Ibrar re-signing a memorandum of understanding that police first signed with our Muslim leaders in 2009. Now that memorandum of understanding lays out processes and principles of how we would mutually engage with one another when there were issues. And since 2009, there have been multiple crises that have affected our communities and impacted our communities, from the rise of ISIS through to many regional and local conflicts. And when the 15th of March took place, we already had a foundation of trust and a documented process that we could work with one another. You don't need the best people. You need the right people. We face significant challenges: the timeous release and identification of the shuhada, return of the mosques after cleansing, the number of international leaders and dignitaries that descended on Christchurch, all wanting to contribute, all wanting to participate in the service. The national planning for the prayer, the complexity of managing speakers, messaging, and the program, the constant need for updates. One challenge we did not have to manage was which leaders to take guidance from. We knew the right representatives that had been actively contributing to New Zealand. Pictured on the top is Imam Gamal Fowder, working with us to plan the national service. On the bottom photo is the head of the local iwi, Tamari To, with a gathering of our Islamic leaders and government representatives working through the national call for prayer. Now that partnership, when you have significant world leaders coming to Christchurch, all wanting to speak on a program, can be very difficult to manage. But we did that under the auspices of the local indigenous people that provided an umbrella or a framework on which we could deliver that service. The mindset of reprisal and revenge destroys states, while the mindset of unity and acceptance builds nations. What emerged from this tragedy was a concept that is being referred to here today as Aotearoa resilience or New Zealand resilience. It is based on pre-existing networks of support and cooperation amongst diverse ethnic and religious groups who are active citizens of New Zealand. This resilience manifested in the grassroots mobilization of support mechanisms, interfaith solidarity, and a collective determination to reject division and hate. 6 days after the attacks, the mosques were returned, and after 7 days, they were opened to the community, and all burial processes were completed in a respectful and dignified manner. New Zealand came to a standstill for a national call to prayer. This powerful moment of unity demonstrated our collective resolve to stand against hatred and support our Muslim community. After climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. However, our work did not end after the return of the mosques. What followed was the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the terrorist attacks. This involved a comprehensive inquiry with the final report released 20 months later in November 2020. Following this was an implementation process for agencies to respond to the 44 recommendations from these attacks. The government established its own ministerial advisory group, and this consisted of members from across New Zealand society, including the impacted families. Let the choices we make reflect our hopes, not our fears. Now, police already had an existing police Muslim communities reference group in place, and this was pivotal in working alongside our communities to address the specific recommendations relating to the attacks. Now, we were one of the first agencies to have such a reference group in place, and when such significant tragedies take place, the Muslim leadership is going to be called upon in order to work in partnership with government to implement these recommendations. And at that time, you need to have the right people with the right competencies, with the right insights in order to contribute to what the future and a future state is going to look like and how that is going to be shaped. And that is the responsibility and the burden of responsibility and leadership that is necessary. Sacrifice for the greater good must always take precedence over individual wants. So what can we learn from New Zealand's experience? Firstly, the importance of building authentic and trusted relationships and formal partnerships before a crisis occurs. As we've shared that we signed an MOU with FIANZ in 2009. Second, the powerful and visible leadership through swift mobilization of competent community leaders, by quickly having our elected representatives, senior government officials speaking and engaging with the respected Islamic experts, community and interfaith representatives, we ensured our response was empathetic, united, and community-centered. Third was the critical need for cultural expertise within our institutions, and our ability to deploy officers with deep and respectful understandings of Islamic culture made a significant contribution. The necessity of balancing immediate needs with long-term social cohesion goals. While addressing the immediate crisis, we also laid the groundwork for ongoing support and community resilience. The value of transparent and frequent communication. The importance of recognizing and addressing systemic issues. This tragedy highlighted gaps which we are still now working to rectify. And lastly, the power of unity and national identity. Our response demonstrated that our strength as a nation lies in not what attempts to divide us, but in our ability to come together in a time of crisis. In conclusion, social cohesion is not a destination. It is an ongoing journey of deliberate actions. It requires constant effort, open dialogue, and a commitment to understanding and respecting our differences. As leaders and representatives, we must invest in building trusted relationships with strategic groups and institutions, ensuring the voice of communities is reflected and connected within our institutions. We must cultivate cultural competency and embody character and active citizenry. We must foster interfaith and intercultural dialogue, even when and especially when it is challenging. I end with a Maori whakatoki, or a proverb. Kia whakatau muri, te haere whakamua. I walk backwards into the future with my eyes firmly on the past. This proverb is quoted in the opening of the Royal Commission of Inquiry report into the terrorist attacks. It speaks to the Maori perspective of time, where the past and the present and the future are viewed as intertwined. This concept of time does not leave the past behind. Rather, the past and its learnings are carried into the future. Let us continue to honor and carry our collective learnings into the future and continue to build communities of success. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent, for sharing what was very, very insightful experiences in New Zealand in how New Zealand managed a crisis, an evil terrorist attack on a Muslim community. The key strategies you mentioned, I think, are worth noting. Having trusted partners, you mentioned that several times, knowing the right people, ensuring cultural competence, and proactive community engagement with transparent communication, and all that has to be developed way before a crisis begins. Many important insights there. We turn now to listen to Ustazah Liyana, and she's going to be talking about navigating a changing landscape. We're looking at evolving dynamics of interfaith relations in Singapore. Ustazah, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Minister Masagos Zulkifli, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests and leaders and friends. Being the last speaker and perhaps also the roses among the thorns is always not easy, because I'm probably standing between deep listening or deep meditation. But hopefully, the purpose of the presentation, my presentation, is not so much about, I think if I can quote Mr. Rakesh, I like what he said when we are committed to do the strategic planning that we are working towards social cohesion. It is important that we find not so much about the best person, but the right person. And when in the context of Singapore, as we try to navigate through the challenges ahead, it's not so much about us having the best solution, but we try to apply and offer the right solution, being in the right time of solving our problems. So my presentation today is navigating a changing landscape, the evolving dynamics of interfaith relations in Singapore. In general, if we mention or if we put the context of Singapore, it's religiously diverse, racially diverse as well. Perhaps to many of us Singaporeans, but also if you are not Singaporeans here, and if this is the first time you hear the word rojak, maybe after this you can speak to more of our local delegates here. What does rojak means? Because rojak is local delicacies that mix with all kinds of spices and fruits and a bit of vegetables, and it gives you a bit of a very unique flavor. And technically, we like to be seen as such because we have our uniqueness, we have our strengths, we have our challenges, And that's how we see ourselves as we tend to describe on the context of diversity. But before we start, I think it is also important for me to elaborate a bit what do interfaith relations mean here. Oftentimes, the pet peeve that sometimes people are saying that your understanding of interfaith relations based on my understanding is different, and therefore my expectation and the way that I would like to manifest it is also different. Sorry, let me, okay, all right, okay. The definition that I quoted, maybe just one of it. To be fair, there are different camps of trying to interpret, and in fact, the term interfaith oftentimes is also being substituted with the term interreligious. But in this context, what I would like to highlight is the idea of cooperation between people of different religions and backgrounds. To a certain extent, there's also a discussion that interfaith here also means people who do not necessarily have religion, but they do subscribe to a certain spiritual path and would like to be included as part of this discussion and this cooperation, and also emphasize the building of relationship, understanding, and more importantly, shared social goals. So as we go through later on, looking into the dynamics of our interfaith relation, these are the aspects that you want to see how do we view differences, and how differences can be a point of strength in the context of the case studies of Singapore. But again, before I dive deeper, this is actually the key questions that I would like to bring over for everyone. And in fact, later on, it's something that I would like to remind again. As we talk about interfaith relations or the larger aspect of social cohesion, the key question that we need to ask ourselves is this a problem we can solve, or is it an ongoing polarity, paradox, or dilemma that we must manage well? If you talk about a problem, then problem is something that you find one solution, or maybe there are several choices for you to find those solutions and solve it, and that's it, it's done. But polarity here is, it's an unsolving dilemma. Because of the complexity, it is an ongoing issue that we need to think through. And therefore, later on, as we go through and see what are some of our challenges, perhaps it's also important for us to think through what are issues that maybe we need to solve, but what are something that is very complex, and therefore we need to revisit for long-term purposes and for long-term planning. Okay, so now we move on a bit on the context of Singapore. As I've mentioned, Singapore is very religiously diverse. If we look based on the Pew Research Center 2014, Singapore is a religiously diverse countries. And if we look, if we try to compare based on the statistics of 2010 and 2020, we can see Singapore majority, it's being filled with the Buddhist society, the Buddhist group. And then we have a few more. We have Taoism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, other religions such as Sikhism, Zoroastrianism, and a few others, and also no religion. But perhaps what I would like to highlight a bit here, you can see there are some of these religious groups is declining. There are also some of this religious group in which there's a fair increment in terms of the followers. But what is also significant, and that we need to pay a little bit more attention, in which the increase level is, it increases rapidly, is actually the no religion. And therefore, this is also something that we need to think through as we navigate with these challenges in terms of navigating future policies, engagement. What does it mean to have people with no religion being part of this ecosystem and be part of the decision making, be part of the social system, and so on and so forth. Okay, the slide is not moving. Anyway, okay, give me a minute. Okay. All right. So when we talk about religious diversity in Singapore, there is also a history to it. We've come so far with several challenges that we are facing, but at the same time, there's also blessings to think through. So if we look at the backdrop of religious landscape in Singapore, if we look at the early part, the early colonial approach, there are also discussions about which is actually the first data census that we received in Singapore. Some studies says it's 1849, some says it's 1871, but significantly it reflects that Singapore is already diverse back then. When it comes to the approach of the integrating the religious groups and also the ethnicity, by right for the religious groups, the colonial approach, the British colonial approach is very much on the non-intervention approach, and therefore religious pluralism thrives at that time. But perhaps when it comes to what we see as trying to integrate the ethnicity, oftentimes the discussions or the debate is, the society is always ended up being in an ethnic enclaves, and therefore integration is limited to just integrating in market. So there wasn't much effort there. But again, with that is being limited, therefore we can also see even in the early days there's already some tensions that happening. For example, in 1851 there is an anti-Catholic riots in which it involves Chinese immigrants who converted to Roman Catholics, and vis-a-vis Chinese who do not subscribe to Roman Catholicism. And there was a tension because they felt that Roman Catholicism eroded the value of a secret society at that time. And so with all these different challenges that took place, and perhaps I might skip a little bit because after the 1849, the next part, the vision of peace in 1949, which is actually after post-World War II, one thing that I think that we can take pride of in Singapore, because we do have a vision of peace at that time, and the Interreligious Organization of Singapore was formed. But to be fair, because it was 1949 and it was before Singapore's independence, originally known as the Interreligious Organization of Singapore and Johor Bahru, and they eventually changed the name in 1961. And IRO played a significant role because first, it was formed post-World War II. As you can see, 1949, it's a very significant period because it was also during the Pakistan and India partition. And there were a lot of things that happened globally, and that actually bring a lot of people together to envision peace. At that time, Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiq, who was a saint that came from Meerut, India in the 30s, came to Singapore and see the diversity in Singapore. He felt that it's important to envision that bringing people together based on the different religious backgrounds, working together is very important. And therefore, with his support, and also back then, Sir Malcolm MacDonald, who was the British High Commissioner's support, eventually IRO was formed. And IRO also plays a significant role because after World War II, in the 50s, there were a lot of riots that happened in Singapore. It was very frequent. And therefore, the role of interreligious organization at that time, it was not just about trying to better understand about the different religions or just about religious principles, but how religious principles and values can help establish peace, eradicate hatred, and how they can bring about the calmness and the stability of the society as a whole. And of course, moving on from 1949, if we look at the post-independence Singapore, 1965 onwards, there are three key things that if I can highlight. Post-independent is a very significant phase for us because this is where we establish the institutional and the legal framework, the different acts, the different regulations that took place to balance up the freedom of religion, but at the same time, the importance of putting the necessary regulations to control to control individuals who try to create any animosity, hatred, deliberate enmity, something that can create further tension. And so there is also a balance between having these rules and regulations in place, but at the same time, the importance of also communicating with the different religious leaders, social leaders, community leaders, to ensure that social cohesion is not just about the security bit, but also the relationship building bit. The next part, if you see below the CMIO model framework, as you can see from the early beginning, Singapore has had, in its unique form, is very diverse, it's very unique, and therefore, with the impact of the colonizations and the ethnicity enclaves, the government feels it is very important that we have to be strategic. We have to put the CMI model in place. The CMI model here that I've mentioned is literally the Chinese, Malay, Indian, others model to ensure that we can actually balance out in terms of the integration of the different race and also the different regions in Singapore. Yeah. But of course, moving along the way, there will also a lot of discussions about how the CMI model can be better implemented or can be better discussed, because the globalizations and Singaporeans by identity has been much, much more diverse as compared to just Chinese, Malay, Indian, others, and so on and so forth. And finally, in terms of what we can highlight further about the post-independence part is that the role of religion in nation building, religion is not something that is being sidelined by the state. I think something that's unique about Singapore, yes, we are a secular state, but the government works very closely and listens very closely and try to help solve and assist the religious groups, the religious communities, and therefore religion is a constructive force to help inculcate good citizenship. And there are several initiatives that was done in helping to balance between the secular life as well as the religious life. But of course, after that, perhaps most of us know, post-September 11 really creates a big change because this is where we really need to revisit again what does social cohesion means, what does social trust means. In the context of Singapore, this is where we also see the thriving of the different grassroots programs, grassroots initiatives, and also government initiatives for the community that was striving to help solve the issues. So this is just to give you the context of the interreligious organizations that I mentioned earlier, and also the Racial Religious Harmony Circle, in which was an initiative by the ministry to help bring the neighborhoods together so that integration between the neighbors are normalized on a day-to-day basis. And of course, notwithstanding something that is very important and very close to the heart of the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, because the establishment of the Harmony Center partly was because of the post-September 11, and the motivation at that time is to help correct the misconception of Islam and also help to integrate the Muslims communities and the other faith communities as well. I think one unique part about the center is if you see the photos and if you can see there's the panel about all the different religions there, that is where we help to integrate and invite the different faith organizations to come and contribute and help us to cross-check to ensure that we get the right facts of the different faith organizations that was actually displayed as part of the display panel at the center. So as you can see, the initiative is not just solely about the Muslims community, but we also invite the non-Muslims community to also contribute and support the work of the center. And so this is just to summarize in terms of the Harmony Center's approach on how we continue to strengthen social cohesion. Intervention and integration reflects about how we intervene when we try to help in creating awareness about the misconception of Islam and conduct more trainings. The reflection and action is another reflection of having more dialogues and actions. And finally, the agile and sustainability is really about how do we move about with the different approaches and programs when there are challenges that's very diverse, challenges that's more complicated that we need to deal with in future. And of course, this is just to summarize a little bit more. Apart from Harmony Center, these are also other ground initiatives that exist in Singapore, which focuses on youth initiatives, dialogues. There are also content creators who are also doing a good work in trying to promote and continue to strengthen social cohesion. So to summarize, if we talk about managing diversity in Singapore, these are the 4 aspects that we can look into: proactive government, effective systems and institutions, a strong community leadership, and also expanding common spaces. All these 4 works hand in hand is the right formula that able to help us to navigate through the issue of social cohesion. But then again, when COVID struck, it really hit us in a sense that we need to start asking what are some challenges, new challenges that we need to face. As you can see, these are the 4 points: demand for interfaith in action, or like having more advocacy work, re-evaluation of religious authority and practices, mental health and spiritual support, rising interest on spirituality but no religion, and also a changing perception of sacred space. These perhaps are the micro of the realities. But if you're looking at the macro level, what are the challenges that we are facing as we talk about social cohesion? There's larger factors that is actually intertwined, interrelated, and is affecting one another, and therefore is a lot more complex than what we think of. And so because of that, for Harmony Center, when we think through about how do we move forward when things are getting complex, we have to really revisit and think about what are the different thinking tools that we can use to understand possibilities that can take place in future. And so we actually use the futures thinking model to actually help us to navigate the ever-changing landscape. So to summarize here in the context of using the futures thinking models, Harmony Center has its own issues and challenges that we need to deal with, the post-September 11. But if we look at the future has a different challenges and different sets. And so we need to ask ourselves right now, what are the different assumptions? We need to challenge our assumptions. What are the different issues and problems that we need to deal with? What are the exploring trends? What are the possible different scenarios that can take place? And how can we prepare ourselves? So this is just a summarizing the different scenarios as we think through what and how the futures might be. So we categorize it into 3. 1, in a situation of like no religion, what does interfaith work look like in Singapore, where most Singaporeans don't identify with any faith at all? 1,000 flowers bloom is actually an impact that says, what does interfaith work look like in Singapore when the faith landscape is both messier and richer than at present? And finally, the robotic messiah is a scenarios where what does interfaith work look like in Singapore where digital technology is much more than central. Perhaps the futures may be more than this. But to be fair, we are trying to narrow down and see what could be a bit more strategic for us to focus on. And if this is the possible scenarios that we are working with, the policy considerations that we can ask ourselves, sorry, the clicker doesn't seem to move. Okay. So for the policy considerations here, if we look at about the no religion, perhaps some of the aspects, some of the questions that we can think through is the approach towards learning and engagement. If there are more people of no religion, what does that mean? How does dialogue look like? How does interactive learning looks like? In terms of 1,000 flowers bloom means there's a lot more polarizations, and how do we define authenticity and sensitivity? Diversity needs to connect and be heard. If a lot of people want their voices to be heard, and therefore what does it mean being in the polarized world? And also in terms of robotic messiah, some of the policy consideration is in terms of digitalizations, the content regulation, what does it mean? If everything is all being based online, how do you differentiate between what is sacred spaces and what is online spaces? And these are some of questions that we can think through as we revisit what are some of these that might be useful for the policy considerations. And so just to sum up back in terms of the futures thinking model, what I'm trying to highlight here is perhaps if we use the old method of thinking, just perhaps, for example, just use design thinking, we would probably just look at the same old problem and try to solve the old problems. But if we use the futures thinking, it is not just about looking at the old problem and try to make it better, but also looking at some of the blind spots that perhaps we may have never discussed before, and that will help enrich in terms of our preparation and our strategic planning in building up social cohesion. And so, for us, when we've looked into the futures thinking, and we also curate the different scenarios planning, the key questions that we need to ask ourselves moving forward and charting the future of social cohesion is, what is the value propositions, whether you are as an organizations or advocates doing social cohesion work, what is it exactly the needs of the community, because things have changed and evolved. What are the measures, what are the impact that you would like to see on the ground, and how does success look like with the differences in navigating the landscape. And this is my last slide. Finally, the clicker works. So the conclusion, I'm bringing you back to the key question with the driving forces that takes place right now. Is this problem we can solve, or is it an ongoing polarity, paradox, or dilemma that we must manage well? And at the micro level, to summarize it, using futures thinking models is one of perhaps a refreshing tool that we can revisit to develop, innovate, and sustain social cohesion to meet the volatile landscape. But at the macro level, perhaps revisit policy considerations to strengthen social cohesion landscape, encourage and support cross-sector partnership to leverage on different strengths and wider resources. And finally, despite of the differences and challenges, I think by the end of the day, as we talk about social cohesion, is to inculcate positive values and uphold human dignity. And with that, I end my session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ustazah, for sharing about the Singapore case about interfaith relations and how community leaders have been very much part of this as early as 1949, continuing to try to foster, build bridges, build good relationships, and also the importance of how community leadership and all these initiatives of interfaith work have to consider the future with new tools. So we've had some rich discussion or rich sharing from our three panelists. It's time now to think about some questions or discuss and have some good time to be able to pick their mind and some of the important issues which it comes with social cohesion. There's a QR code that you can use if you'd like to submit an online question. I believe it's somewhere there in case you prefer not to ask it directly. But we are wanting to prioritize those who are willing to put up your hands and ask the question. And I think that would be a very, very good way of engaging our panelists here. So as you think about what to ask our panelists, just remember that today we have heard about how community leadership has been so pivotal in every society we have heard about, whether it's in Yala, whether it is in New Zealand, whether it's in Singapore. Community leadership in the face of the challenges that our society is posed to us when it comes to social cohesion. The ability of community leaders to navigate that space, to develop competency, to have a vision for the future, to be able to be proactive is extremely important. And of course, that is helped by a responsive state which partners together with non-state actors. I guess there might be some questions, so I'm going to just see whether anybody has hands up, and we'll begin here.
Assalamualaikum pada semua. Firstly, just want to say thank you very much to all panelists. It's been a very interesting conversations and discussion, even moving from Yala City, which I can't wait to explore and visit in the future. But my question is actually towards Mr. Rakesh. Firstly, I have to say that I still remember vividly on the day itself when I was going to Friday prayers and going through that motion and going to the mosque and thinking about if this would be my last day, if I don't see my family after this. And being an ex-police officer also and being a reservist, there was always this entrenched, like, oh my God, we could have done better, we could have done something, we could have done some security. So I do understand the context a little bit. We do understand that the terrorist was actually an Australian man. How would you then, because as much as your efforts in building in the current community and building that social cohesion, there are outliers like this whereby he's not even in your community in the first place. What are measures that you can take, or you say that there are some things which are within our control and there's always going to be things which are not within our control? How would you actually face these issues? So I'm just trying to grapple. I don't know whether you have any answers, but these are just questions which I'll be posing to the panelists. Thank you.
I think there are a number of related questions, even on the...
Thank you, Chairman Mathew. I have a related question. I was really very happy to hear Mr. Rakesh, Naidoo. I thought it sounded perfect, but I wonder whether in fact is really that perfect a situation which you have painted. I like the quotes you gave, like not best, but the right people to work with. Conquer one hill to discover more hill to discover. I walk backwards into the future and with my eyes firmly on the past. Those are excellent quotes. But I'd like to ask you actually, in fact it's related to what Ustazah Liyana has mentioned, the quote which she gave us, which I thought was also excellent to give that kind of balance, this kind of, the second, sorry. Is this a problem we can solve, or is it an ongoing polarity, paradox, or dilemma that we must manage well? That's my question now. If you put the two together, there must have been problems, because what you presented to us really was very reassuring, very inspiring, but where were the problem areas? It cannot be that perfect situation. So how do you handle the problem areas in the case of New Zealand, and similarly with Thailand or Singapore? Where were the problem areas? Where are the challenges, and how are we tackling them? Thank you.
Thank you both for your very important questions. We can't control the future. And when we have plans, we can always learn, and as has been shared, you can have a futures plan, a futures lens. You can learn from the past and prepare. But as Mike Tyson said, all plans go out of the window when you get punched in the face. When something occurs, you're now going to realize what's confronted you and is right in front of you. And I guess that's why the emphasis here is how do you build the relationships and the people and an ecosystem around you that no matter what occurs, you're not going to fold and you're not going to break. You may buckle, you may have to absorb what occurs, but it's not going to destroy you. Now that for me, when you have significant issues like that occur, you look around you and you see who's to the left of you, who's to the right of you, who is actually going to go forward with you to confront this. And in that time, you have a sense of calmness that comes over you when you look at who your leaders are, who is going to stand with you, who is going to be right next to you. And that's when I can vividly remember the calls that we made to the key people that we knew that was going to stand with us at that moment. And not panic, not start saying things that's going to turn our nation into a bigger issue or bigger challenge. Was going to be able to stand in front of the media and speak and not be coached what to say, but who's going to speak from the heart. Because at that time you need authenticity to come out. You need people to be able to see that when you're talking to them, you're talking to their heart. You're not trying to be politically correct, or you're not trying to hide something, but being honest with people. That is the preparation behind. To my colleague who has a military and policing background, we know that we prepare, we train, we plan, we do all of these things. And that helps us. But when you're in the heat of battle, the people that are next to you. So we are so grateful to our Muslim leaders, to our Muslim community, because they were preparing for a long time with us, managing many, many different issues. Behind you sits Ibrar Sheikh. Ibrar knows that he's on a speed dial. No matter what occurs globally, it impacts in New Zealand. But we know that we can pick up the phone, have a conversation, and whatever it is, we will get through it together. So just to share with you that the challenges that we had were phenomenal. The arguments, the criticism, the complexity of dealing with what occurred. But we were so grateful that we had that competent leadership who understood New Zealand, what it is to have New Zealand values, what is it to speak about it, that was able to stand with us. If we didn't have that Islamic leadership, not only would New Zealand have been in turmoil, but our region would have been in turmoil. Someone shared with us, why did we involve the indigenous community in this? Because we had learned from the past. We had learned from the Christchurch earthquakes when we lost 172 people, that the more you involve a wider group of friends who want to help you and assist you, the more support you will have to overcome with what you need. Although we have many people from our Maori community who are Muslims, the ones that actually assisted us directly weren't of the Muslim faith. But they, in indigenous terms, put a cloak of protection and of support to bring all their resources, all the insights that they had had of their generations, of their history, of their suffering, of their loss, to come and be a comforting and supportive person just to be next to our community. So the inclusion of them was not, oh, you must include us if something happens. It was out of respect that we want to include you from the very beginning because you have that history to share of how your people have managed this for generations from the past. And that wisdom, when it comes into the room, even if it says nothing, and we've all been in a presence where you're in a room of people and somebody walks in, but they carry with them such an aura and such a history that they don't have to say anything, but just their presence is reassuring enough for you to overcome anything that you need. And in that environment, good decisions get made because they bring that sense of peace, calm, and foresight. So, to conclude that very long answer, there are many technical challenges, including working through a program when you've got international leaders wanting to speak on a program and our local community wanting to do it very respectfully. Just the national call to prayer that went out globally. If one word was said wrong, what would have occurred? But to manage that, that's where that wisdom came into that. But that sense of calmness was based on having the right people with us. And that could have never have happened if our Muslim community hadn't invested in those critical, competent, and expert leadership that they had developed over the years. So when that occurred, they just stepped to the fore. They didn't have to go and start planning for it and to be overwhelmed by it. They were able to take a deep breath and say, now's the time. We are ready for this. We've been preparing for this for a long time. It's in front of us. Now we're going to manage this.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful and informative. I did remember that Ambassador did ask for the other societies whether there are similar social cohesion issues that you want to kind of reflect on, and what might be some of the challenges which are ongoing. Mayor, in the case of Yala, do you see any?
I think for the Yala citizen, they have learned quite for a long time, because we have under situation since 2004. So up to now it's 20 years. I think nobody have any benefits from that event, from that endless situation. So they learn a lot of, for their difficult time. So after that, I think for me, what I'm thinking, now is in terms of the violence, most of the majority of the people, they don't accept for the violence anymore. So in terms of some separatists or some minority groups, I think now they have to change their strategy. To do more about the well-being of the citizen, rather than to use the weapon, use the violence to try to gain authority. What I am doing now, my first 10 years, I'm doing a lot about the security modes, because I have to install the CCTV or everything. But now the situation become better. I try to recover and to look, to try to get it up under condition. So you have seen my PowerPoint. We have done a lot of participation because we want to listen on the group in the society, and try to lower as possible for the condition, for the unsatisfaction about the people. And after that, we try to bring on the youth coming to work with a municipality. For example, for the underprivileged, I set up the one foundation and to send them to study, and now the situation become better. A lot of big investors, for example, like the Big C is the big superstore in Thailand, and Lotus. When they come to open in my city, all the workers I send from the underprivileged family to work there. And some people from the poor family, like the vegetable, is grown from the farm, from the underprivileged family, to sell the Big C and Lotus to improve their well-being. And other that's from the cream, for example, like the student, the cream student, I set up we call the fab lab, something like the fab laboratory. So the student, they can send their proposal. Like some students, they get the awards from Malaysia, Indonesia, or even from Turkey. They can send their proposal, and we have to set up the one committee to analyze their proposal. And then we support all the material they have to use in their laboratory. And if you would like to contact with any instructor in university in Thailand, our municipality to connect that instructor for them the instructor coming to be at their mentor and build up to be the startup in the province. So we have done a lot of things like this. So we try to look more about the well-being of the people and about the education, and we focus more on the underprivileged family in the society. So what I'm thinking I have done like this, I think there is no any condition. And because we quite in Thailand, society is quite free, it's quite open, and in terms of religion, you can practice any religion. You can practice any religion. And during Ramadan, I am going to visit all the mosques to talk with the religious leader. And sometimes, because in Thailand, in the South Thailand, they have the folklore we call the Lim Konia Shai, God, one of the gods, their ancestor is coming from China, and now they change to Muslim, something like that. So they have mixed some Chinese. So they come to open the Ramadan, open fasting in the same mosque from the Chinese community. That's we have done a lot of things as allowed in the city. So I think, but for the young generation, we create a lot of projects like that. I mentioned we still have we call the Yala hackathon. For the youngster, allow 200 team. It's a virtual from Bangkok, or even other province can come to join, but you have to be the Yala people and come to join and to work with our municipality. So I try to bring all the youth coming to work with our municipality and give them more opportunity.
I'm just going to add a bit because we are also running a bit out of time. But with regards to Ambassador's question, I think one of the main challenges, whether it's an issue that you want to solve or issues that you want to manage, what's important is to have the clarity what values that we want to uphold as part of the outcome of managing it. Because I think oftentimes so for example, I'll just give one example. A few years back, probably about 2 to 3 years back, there was this issue about a Christian youth who wanted to attack a mosque in Singapore. And I remember after that incident, the faith leaders, the Muslim leaders and the Christian leaders came and have a discussion. But what happened was, apart from the faith leaders had the discussion, the youth leaders were also meeting at the site. And they were also talking. And they were also trying to figure out if they can play a role in mitigating these issues. And so the youth leaders came to us, to Harmony Center, and said, we wanted to do something because we are concerned. We know faith leaders have a role, but we also want to play our part, and perhaps we can run programs. And so I remember we asked them, what kind of programs you would like to do? And they say, we wanted to do a dialogue that by the end of the day, the goal that we want to achieve is we are all in peace, we are all in good relationship, and we can move, Muslim and Christian, we can move hand in hand. But then I remember I asked them, is this actually the actual problem that we are facing? If you are doing this, is this really solving the problem? What is it exactly the root of the issue? And then they said, yeah, actually it's about misunderstanding of the sacred reading, the scriptures, misinterpretation of the scriptures. And so we said, if this is the issue, then it doesn't resonate with the goal that you want to achieve. It doesn't match. So what should you do? And they say, then maybe we have to have the discussion about what's the problem with our context. But then they say, but we are very scared. Because what if we get the steps wrong, and then maybe we end up with a problem with the security matters now, because maybe they think that we are spreading lies or misinterpretation. And then we narrow it down and tell them, now let's put up what are the values that you want to uphold as part of this dialogue. And they say trust, understanding, clarity, friendship, relationship. So if this is the values that you want to hold this and go throughout and create your program. And remember, every step that you look into, it has to match to these values. And that's what they did. And eventually, it helps them to navigate the difficult conversations because they know, even if, let's say, there are issues that they don't agree with, maybe there's an issue of tension, but by the end of the day, you go back to that values. What is it? It's about trust. So it's not necessary that the Muslims have the bigger win of the discussion or the justification, or the Christians have a better way of arguing. But when it comes to the idea of respect and trust, we know that by the end of the day, we're going to match to these values. And I think perhaps if we look into that, and also because upholding values is part of the peace building model, that's also something that we need to think through as we manage polarities. In the most difficult way of negotiating and mediating, what could be the least values that we can uphold so that we can continue to live up to that human dignity, that people have the rights to express and the right to think and right to decide, and not to the extent of hating just because we are different.
Thank you very much, Ustazah, for sharing that. I think you ended off on a very important note about the kind of values that we need to hold on to. I do realize that we are out of time, and I want to ask you to join me in thanking all of our speakers for their excellent sharing and the case studies they have provided to us. You know, there are a couple of questions here. I'm sure you can continue to ask and engage our speakers if you'd like to. Thank you very much.